Hello internet, I greatly apologize for my absence, even though as you guys always remind me that time with your family is always a valid excuse to not make content, but ultimately what I shouldn't do is promise to make content and then not make it, which I did 3 times now, but I have been home less than 24 hours these past few days, and the only time I was here was to basically sleep. But either way, sorry for getting y'all's hopes up. On brighter news, we have raised $435 for Charlie Kirk's Gives and Go, and when I receive that money, I'll make a post about it so you can verify I'm not just pocketing the money or whatever. I'm gonna make a post of me on the Gives and Go, and you guys can go check it out. And to see, I'll just make it like basediftrue's subscribers or whatever. That'll be my account name on there. But anyway, 10 months back, we looked at the subreddit r/communism, so it was only a matter of time before we covered this one. So without further ado, let's get right to the posts. Alright, so here we are on the front page of r/socialism, and here's something interesting I saw. So if you actually look it up, it says it has 475,000 members, but if you look here, it actually has less than half of that, and I'm not sure what happened. Maybe they purged all the dead accounts or something and just didn't update it here, but this seems to be a trend across a lot of subreddits, but this one is hit particularly bad, losing almost like way more than half of its members, like 60%. But anyway, let's read what this says. Socialism, a community for socialists, an international community for socialists to discuss current events in our world from our anti-capitalist perspectives. Certain knowledge of socialism is expected from participants, okay? This is actually the first time I've ever seen something like this. I mean, isn't one of your jobs to educate people on it? I guess not. If you remember Hassan's Reddit, it had all the fucking bullshit informational stuff at the top, but whatever. Please be mindful of our rules before participating as they are actively enforced. New to socialism, please visit Socialism 101 prior to participating here. Alright, and before we get to the post, we'll read this commie gobbledygook down here because a lot of people actually don't know what socialism is, and you'll hear arguments like the police are socialists or like a socialist program when in fact they're actually enforcing private property rights. But let's just read what it says. Socialism as a political system is defined by democratic and social control of the means of production by the workers, and this is key here, for the good of the community rather than capitalist profit, based fundamentally on the abolition of private property relations. And by principle alone, this is really what I have a problem with, because that is ultimately the goal, is to get rid of private property and have something, sorry, not something, but collective ownership. You'll hear the word collective a lot. Sorry, I was just thinking of a bunch of fucking memes in my head. But yeah, let me give you a real world translation of what collective ownership means. It basically means, okay, now the state's gonna decide how to distribute everything, because ultimately, people can't collectivize in mass like this. So this is essentially why all of these quote-unquote communist or socialist governments fail. It's very simply due to the fact that 1, governments suck, and 2, they especially suck at something that's nearly impossible, which is quote-unquote fairly distributing, resources to everybody. So don't let these fucking communist wannabes tell you otherwise. Just go read a fucking history book. But anyway, alright, this apparently blew up somewhat on Great British Memes, and it got 17,000 upvotes, so let's give it a listen.
Is immigration a problem in the UK?
No,
Why'd you say no?
because it's fundamental to our existence.
Okay. Immigration is fundamental to our existence. Alright, let me hear why he says that.
Oh, why'd you say that?
Because we need it. We don't have enough people being born in this country, we need it.
Okay, so if you don't have enough people being born in this country, why is the solution to just import as many people as possible? So maybe I'm an idiot and someone can correct me in the comments, but I feel like society could survive, not having as high of a population rate, because, you might have to downscale things a bit and your GDP might shrink, but I don't feel like it would, collapse society the way a lot of people think it will. I feel like if we just bolster a culture that actually, values life and builds smaller communities that can support each other a lot more, then, we don't need to import, as many immigrants as possible to keep it going, like. Especially the way they do it, they're just completely erasing their culture just out of sheer population differences and the lack of assimilation. But yeah, I feel like countries and people have survived with much lower populations, so the fact that not as many people are being born just doesn't seem, at least to me at the moment, like that big of an issue that is irreversible or whatever. I don't know, give me your thoughts in the comments, but let's hear a few more things this guy has to say, because this is 2 minutes.
It's simple.
Why does the UK fear immigration?
We're told to.
Yes, the only reason is that we're told to. There's no practical problems that come with, like, extreme amounts of immigration. Nobody can think for themselves, we're just told to.
By who?
The elites that own us. So the capitalists and the billionaires that are in charge that really own us and own our parties, mostly the Tories, but now Labour as well, they tell us to fear it because they need someone to blame for our problems when really they're the ones causing our problems.
Okay, so capitalists and billionaires are apparently telling people to fear immigration when ultimately they would be the ones who benefit the most from like things like cheap labor and just more economic activity in general. But they're the ones who are against it, I guess. Alright. That doesn't make too much sense, but maybe I'm missing something.
Our problems.
Do you think we have overpopulations in major cities?
No, not a...
You think so, really? Because everyone says that the UK is such a small thing, the country is individual small islands, bringing more people here, we don't have the space for it. Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's a lie. We have the Greenbelt. The Greenbelt is mostly empty space, and we've killed all the animals in it. We might as well build on it. We need houses. It's the fundamental thing that kills our country and kills our young people. We need to build houses. We need to make them so that people can buy them and own them and stop them being owned by landlords.
Now, one thing that we can agree on is that I don't think companies like Blackstone, which is a massive corporate entity, should be buying fucking personal homes in communities that they're not a part of and making it almost impossible for new like renters to actually be able to stay there. There's just so many issues that we've seen occur when we allow this to happen, so I think most people think this is bad. And look, even this guy agrees, and even then, government elites and capitalists may argue they're against immigration, but that's bullshit. They love the prospect of cheaper labor from abroad, specifically if they're undocumented and unskilled workers they can pressure into working for lower wages without fear of them organizing and bargaining with labor power. But you know what, guys? You know what gives the most power to the people? It's letting them actually be able to operate in a market and not having so many regulations that make the barrier to entry almost impossible to get through unless you're a large corporation. But anyway, let's move on. A long and sordid history. Get up, whites only, get up, and oh my god, this was 8 years ago during the whole Colin Kaepernick thing, man. But this is just so fucking retarded. This has nothing to do with the other two. This got 25,000 upvotes. Holy shit. Didn't Colin Kaepernick protest because he thought like unarmed black people were getting gunned down left and right? But when you actually looked at the stats, it was like barely any. But because I'm a fair floppa, I will say that there is an inequality in the justice system, except that it's basically financial. You know, the more expensive your lawyer, the bigger the shit they can get you out of, more or less. I definitely think that's been an issue for quite a while, but that was so long ago. That was like 8 years ago, so maybe some of you can refresh me on some of the details. Let's look at the comments. I agree with the message here, but isn't it a bit extreme to compare a multimillionaire athlete receiving media backlash with a literal slave being whipped? That is what I'm saying. This got 3.3 thousand upvotes. I think it's less about the circumstances African Americans faced in each time period and more about the continued restrictions on their civil liberties regardless of scale. I thought it was just more of the stats don't really demonstrate what you're saying and you look like a fucking idiot. So do us all a favor and stop being retarded. But apparently this guy thinks it's just about the normalization of white supremacy. Your average Redditor logic at work here. But at the end of the day, it's kind of funny because it just shows you how far we came, you know, historically speaking, in such a short period of time. Like, went from getting whipped to just kneeling as a multimillionaire in the middle of a football game. But to Redditors, I guess the oppression is exactly the same. Okay, now this is a crash out that I forgot about. It's time to ban r/the calling out spez and Reddit admins. Currently, 674,000 Redditors are subscribed to the subreddit. Lurking in that sub is a vile, disgusting expression of hate, which is simmering with violence against the LGBTQI community, Muslims, Jews, and women. How's a subreddit violent? Isn't it just a bunch of posts? The ultimate goal of the Donald was to support the election candidate Donald Trump as president, to frighten, scare, and intimidate the left. Though the sideline rules of the sub reject racism, the proof is in the pudding. any length of time lurking in that sub and you will discover its anti-Semitic and homophobic underbelly. Sadly, these comments and posts are not removed, and the sub itself is riddled with calls for violence against both Jews and Muslims. Further to this, it makes use of anti-Semitic memes which are disguised as something else. Their use of NPC meme further adds to the idea that Muslim and Jews and women and gays are not human while encouraging violence against them. Oh man, I really missed a time in Reddit's life that I wish I had been there for. Now, I hear all this stuff, but I wish I was there to actually, see it and verify it for myself. Because I actually joined Reddit not too long after, hearing about it and stuff, and I thought I would check out the site or whatever. But anyway, their defense of alleged alcoholic rapist Kavanaugh is yet another notch in their belt of venom against the vulnerable to attack victims of rape and promote a rapist as some kind of moral paragon. See, this is why I can't trust, Reddit's point of view. It's because, as you know, we're innocent until proven guilty, and the whole Kavanaugh thing was much like the Trump situation 40 years later where stories started coming out or whatever. And apparently you're just not allowed to defend people who are still, seen as innocent in the eyes of the law. And, again, there is no concrete evidence of the things that they said happen actually occurring. Although I will say there was way less evidence towards Kavanaugh than there is of Trump, but, the situation still remained the same. But anyway, we, as decent humans who stand up for what's right, we on r/socialism and other subs which defend those who are wrongfully attacked must call upon you spez to remove this subreddit and ban it entirely. We must put an end to a subreddit which propagates false news, hate, violence against minorities, hates against immigrants. They constantly launch attacks against poor migrants from Central and South America who are simply looking for a better life. Okay, now this one did not age well, if you know what happened recently. But anyway, this most recent shooting has pushed things too far. It is well known that the far right-wing terrorist was a regular on pro-Trump sites. Which shooting are they talking about again? I was thinking of Charlottesville, but that's not a shooting, that was a car. I'm not really sure, but this edit 3, people are saying that Donald isn't being banned because of the revenue it brings Reddit. So Reddit is literally profiteering off the murder and misery of minorities. I think we need to go after Reddit's advertisers. Why not tweet them what you think of their support for a platform that gives a voice to neo-fascists? I wonder how much money Reddit made off of all the Charlie Kirk posts, but I guess that isn't a problem because he was one of the fascists. These people make me fucking sick, dude. Don't forget to sort by controversial. Okay, let's do it. Okay, yeah, this is pretty much what I expected. Stop blaming climate change on the masses. Scared by that news report on climate change? Here's what you can do to help. Eat less meat, about 30%. Swap your car or plane ride for a bus or train. Use a smart thermostat in your home. Reminder that 100 corporations are responsible for 71% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and Taylor Swift is responsible for the other 29%, and presenting the crisis as a moral failing on the part of individuals without noting this fact is journalistic malpractice. Now, this is actually something we can pretty much fully agree on. Blaming the average person on climate change is fucking retarded. Although it is worth mentioning that corporations respond to consumer demand, so in that way, you can say that consumers are responsible for all the greenhouse gases because, market demand or whatever. But at the end of the day, I still think the solution would be just to innovate more and to allow these companies to innovate even more efficient ways to produce products instead of trying to just regulate them out of existence. But right here, I found a great comment. If we all change our habits and had fewer children, we could change the world for good. But that's a lot to ask for. And now you guys know why abortion is so popular. And now this is what I found so funny. This did not age well. 9 years ago, why are leftists so violent? And I clicked on every single one of these links. And what's funny is that the red ones are ones that actually got deleted because they either lied about the situation or the story just wasn't complete enough. So for legal reasons, they probably had to take them down. And even one of the pink links that I clicked on also was denied, even though it turned pink or whatever. But if you've been looking through their links, the first 3 have to do with actual shootings or murders that occurred, like either batteries or assaults that happened. But, of course, I'm not going to go through every single one of these and read through all the nuances of what happened. Even if every single one of these were exactly what they claim to be, it's very easy to just say, okay, these people were in the wrong and condemn it because you don't like violence. It's very obvious if you're online for even 10 minutes that you see people primarily on the left asking for like revolution and promoting violence or encouraging it or endorsing it. And their justification is always, oh, well, he was a Nazi, so it's okay, when they were pretty far from being a Nazi and just had, either opinions or ideas they didn't like. Whether it's moderate conservative or even more right-leaning. Either way, I haven't seen anyone justify political violence more than people on the left and liberals, which of course is a natural outcome for wanting things like a revolution, but this is just so funny. 19,000 upvotes too. Leftists seem more angry because poor people deserve to survive too, and I work my ass off and still struggle to feed my family are much more emotive arguments than I'd like to pay less tax. Yes, I am a poor left-leaning person, and therefore I am going to encourage others to commit political violence on Twitter. That is going to be my solution. How inspiring. And these are just Trump supporters. I don't even want to know what the far right has done. And if we click on this link, it is that one that I showed you, where apparently these are right-wing terror attacks, all of them. And then there's no left-wing terror attacks at all, because I guess the left is just full of a bunch of very peaceful people who want a very peaceful revolution. Can you like imagine what is going through this person's mind? Like, how retarded do you have to be? This is like the ultimate form of propaganda, and these people just fucking eat it up. So there are 660,000 illegal immigrants in the United States from European countries, the vast majority of them white, yet you don't see a single one of them have their children stripped away, raided, or locked up in cages. We all know why. Now, obviously what he's implying is that America is just racist, but the reality is that most of these people had at one point legal visas and managed to overstay their visas or had some type of work permit, And the reason they stay here for so long is simply because they have the money and resources to do so, and the connections, lawyers, whatever, to challenge the legal status or, manage to fly under the radar somehow. And one of the most obvious and logical reasons why you don't see this happening to these white European, people who've overstayed visas is because, well, they blend in with the population a lot better because they can typically speak English. And two, it's because a lot of the stuff that you see with the cages or whatever happens in the South where, there is actually way more people who cross the border, I think around 8 million. Compared to about like the 5 or 6 million who overstayed visas, but they're all, located generally in the southwest regions of the US. So prioritizing people who don't speak English could possibly have cartel or other criminal, relations, and also violated border laws and weren't supposed to be here in the first place. We never gave them authorization. It's just in reality a much bigger problem than those who we actually granted access to because, they were here to work or travel or because they were a student of some type. And also, for this in particular, it's much harder to track someone who actually can, speak the language fluently, and actually it looks like a majority of the population. Like, that's a really practical issue. Now, should the things in this post be happening? Probably not. We should probably just, take the parents and the children back to the country of origin of which they came from as swiftly and as peacefully as possible, except for the gang members, of course, or the people trafficking copious amounts of drugs into the country. But at the end of the day, I remain consistent in that every illegal immigrant should fucking go. I don't care what you look like. I don't care who you are. Just go through the legal process to actually get your visa renewed or whatever and apply again. And to be honest, this is actually a system issue with the government that they don't keep track of these people. I don't know. I'm sure they do in some instances, but I just don't have the complete knowledge of how the system works, but obviously it isn't working. I'm sure we can come up with something better. Alrighty guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this video, and I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who donated to Charlie Kirk's Give Sin Go, and I'm going to be reading those names out right now. Cameron Campbell, Warrior for Life V2, Nelip, and Triple X Medic are our based gods who donated. Our new base legends are Joshua Locke, or Lotch, I think, Lost Comrade, Crystal Phoenix, and Spanky Tanky. And our new super base members are Bryson Graham, Man Milk, Echo, That Boy, Trolltoe, Mark Deshamed, Sir Gumby, sorry, Sir Gumby, Strangely Sexy, and Count Crotula. And to our new base certified members, Bean, Tomahawk Gaming, BPG, Scott Ladd, Nick Nilsson, Claus Mystery, Benjamin Fairhall, and Steve Crumbo. Thank you so much, all of you guys. I love you, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.